Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored and Best of the Month. This is where I'm joined by some other creators to talk about the games they've enjoyed most in the previous month. It doesn't have to be brand new games, these are normally just new to us, or maybe something we've got back off the shelf, hadn't played it in a while and really enjoyed it. Anyway, without further ado, let's pass over to some other creators.
Hi, I'm Barb, MeeplePhD, and my favorite play for January 2025, y'all, is Distilled. This is a game where players are taking on the role of distillers who are each round trying to craft a different alcoholic beverage. Now, the game is played in different phases of each round. When you start the round, you do this market phase where you are purchasing various ingredients that will go into your drinks. You're purchasing equipment to upgrade your distillery or hiring folks who will help you out with things. Once you've done that, you are going to do the distilling. So, in this phase, you're going to take some of those ingredients that are in your pantry. You have to have at least one yeast, one sugar, and one water, but you can have any number of those ingredients that you would like. And then you're going to add alcohol for each sugar that you have and take that stack of cards and shuffle it up. And then you're going to remove the top and the bottom card, reveal them, and put them back in your pantry. So there's always a danger that you're not quite going to make the recipe that you were hoping to make because two random ingredients are going to come out. Then you'll see which alcohol you made. You're going to put it in a barrel, and then you're either going to sell it or you're going to put it in your distillery to age for a couple of rounds. What I really like about this game, I actually like that presser luck part, the part where you're deciding how many ingredients do I put into my washback before shuffling up my cards and seeing what disappears. I love like puzzling out, do I have enough sugar at this point? Do I need to buy more? Maybe pushing my luck a little bit to try for that one alcohol that I might not quite make, and then end up making moonshine instead. I really like also this. There's a set collection part of this where you can purchase different bottles to sell your alcohols in, and they have some really cute art for these, and they are thematic. So there's a pirate bottle that if you're selling something from the Americas, which could be rum, you get some extra points for doing that. And so I love grabbing those thematic bottles. I can see where some people may not like the push your luck part, that there is that element of luck in this kind of bigger game. But there are so many ways to mitigate it that it hasn't bothered me. But I know for my spouse, it didn't hit the first time we played it with him. So we set this aside for a few months. Now we've gotten it back out a few more times, and I think he's starting to get into it a little bit more. And I'm looking forward to having more plays and trying more of the different flights of alcohol to see how those change things up. So anyway, that is Distilled, my favorite play for this month. You can find me elsewhere on the internet. I am MeeplePhD on Blue Sky and Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel if you're into astronomy and board games. Otherwise, I will see you around.
Hi, I'm Libby, this is Julian, and together we are BoxedMeeples. And yes, we're talking about our favourite games that we have played in the month of January.
Well, my favourite game, I've talked about Hostage Negotiator before, but this is actually career mode. It's technically a different game, so I think it's fine to conclude this again. Now, I started playing Hostage Negotiator last year, and since then I've played it 50 times, which put me in a good position to invest in the career mode. Now, admittedly, to play this, it's quite an investment.
Yes, I mean, you have been gathering parts for Hostage Negotiator probably for the last year. Now, every time there's a sale or whatever, there's a new demand pack, a new negotiation pack. I don't even know all the names of them. There's so many different bits and bobs that have just suddenly been added to the collection.
Yeah. Well, I hoovered them up when I saw them cheap. So I don't think I paid full price for any of this.
No.
Sometimes I paid like 60% off. And there is, in fact, a box you can get directly from Van Ryder, which has everything Hostage Negotiator in. Obviously, you need to ship it into the UK, which may be expensive. But it's a big investment, but I think it's worth it because it does turn it into a large legacy game. But you do have to know the game before you start off with. You want to know how the mechanics work, and the game does assume you know that. But what you do as you're playing through the main game is what this does is add a load of cards and turns it into like this series like a trashy TV hostage negotiator
Oh
series.
my gosh, playing it was like you were obsessed in a new novel. Every time you'd finished a new bit, you were like, oh, you'll never guess what happened here, you'll never guess what happened there. And then every time I looked over to the dining room table, there you were playing yet another section of it.
Because this is a solo only game, it did allow me to, whenever I was available, I didn't have to wait for other people to be available.
No.
I would sit down and just play it.
But I think it certainly had that can't put it down
I was somewhat hooked. I played it over the period of, I think it takes about 10, 15 hours to play the whole of the career mode. What it does is it adds in 2 stressors. One you play before you do an abduction, one you play afterwards. One's career and one's personal. And on each of these stressors is 2 options you choose between, and use that old kind of red acetate to look at the options you choose, and that has a repercussions both on the negotiation that takes place and on the kind of career as it goes on. So it adds various characteristics to your character which will affect decisions you make later on, adds various stresses. Sometimes it makes negotiations better as you rise up the ranks and become a better qualified negotiator with new things you add in, trying again not to spoil anything. Other times it makes things a lot harder as you have to deal with some stresses. That means you're not really fully invested in negotiation. You're too busy thinking about what your cat's doing. It feels that each of the decisions you make, and there is enough in there to be random, does feel like it has a repercussion on the game as a whole, and it just kind of propels you to keep playing and playing and playing. And you certain negotiations are unlocked as you go. But there are some huge twists and turns and some entirely new game mechanisms that this introduces only for the career mode. One of which happens relatively midway through, and then the finale I found absolutely gripping, as the better you had done throughout the game, the better you were going to do in this kind of finale, which played very differently to the whole game, but was so exciting. I didn't expect the ending I got. I was genuinely a bit surprised, and I messaged you because you were at work at the time going, just obscure things. You're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I've reached the end of Hostage Negotiate. But it was so brilliant. And I can't remember last time I felt as excited about a kind of legacy game as I do playing through this. Just the twists and turns I did not see coming. And it affected the game so globally, I didn't think that was going to, how is this going to work? How is this all going to pan out? And there are some physical rewards you get once you do get a certain ending, which I was so amazed that was included in it. If you like these kind of solo games, Final Girl is an obvious one to step into. Hostage Negotiated is a lot harder than Final Girl, a lot less forgiving, and you want a long, lengthy continuation of one game, which Final Girl doesn't really do. You can do it through the app, but doesn't really do it very well. Investing in this was gripping. I can't wait to play it again. You can get a new ending, which I'd have to buy now to play it through again. But I think after so much playing of this, it's time to shelve it for a little bit, and I'll be moving to Final Girl, I think.
For me, we have really enjoyed Lord of the Rings Duel, that Seven Wonders Duel, but with this reskin released at Essen. But that has appeared on my top 50 games of all time this year. So I have spoken about it recently. Obviously, if you've not seen that, do check it out on our channel. So instead, I'm going to talk about Mezen, which is a lovely wintry game, just right for January, that we did really enjoy. Another one that we saw at Essen and played for the first time there, and very kindly Arcane Wonders have sent us this copy to have a look at and review. And I just think it's so great. It's like the Swedish Christmas jumper game in my head. I think it's based on Russian artwork, but really lovely mechanisms where you've got your little tiles on your board. One of you is saying which category of a creature or item you're then going to remove, and then everything will slide down and you're replacing them back into the top, having flipped them over, which is really interesting.
It's kind of columnsy style, if you know that old video game where you take one out and everything kind of shuffles down and fills in the gaps.
Yes, and you can see some of your goals coming up. So you're trying to potentially get certain creatures in every corner or all in the middle, or you're trying to get clusters of things. There's lots of different goals to be working towards as you go through And so what you choose to pull out and how you're going to then rearrange all your tiles to make that work for you. There are some special tiles which add in the scoring. You can basically use them as another item. You can also have some tiles that you get that allow you to maybe take out something else other than what the person has called. So if you really need to not do what they've asked for, you do have to pay for it. But there's that option there to do that a few times in the game. Really lovely, quick, puzzly game that's easy to table. Wintry vibes for sure, and I'm excited to play it more and get more into the sort of headspace of it, how getting it to work, trying to make sure they end up just at that right space that I need them to be at, which can be quite tricky.
I find it cool that you know what you're scoring this turn and also what you're scoring next turn. So you're simultaneously going, okay, do I want to get many points this if it's going to really make next scoring impossible, or should I try and get a few points and set up next turn to be an epic scoring turn?
Yeah, because you can actually choose not to score in order to get those tokens that will allow you to do extra things. So that's always a nice option to have. It gives you variety and some flexibility in the game. But yes, very pretty on the table. A lovely little midweeker, I think.
Yeah, I think if you're into kind of Azul style games, this is one you might be interested in.
Yeah. So that was our favourite games of January.
Yeah.
So my best of the month isn't really a board game, but it's also every board game at the same time, because my pick for the month is a bit of a curveball, as I sometimes do, but for me it's going to be Board Game Arena. Now, at the start of the year, I was like, you know what, let's finally give this one a go. Let's dive in. I dabbled with it now and again, but let's really give this a go. Get some friends on, get some games going, and I have absolutely been loving it. I've had games of Santorini, My City Roll and Write. I've got numerous games of Onitama, King Domino, Carcassonne, all going at the same time. And that's because I've been playing pretty much predominantly turn-based. I have done some real-time games, and that's great fun. But what I've really been enjoying is actually doing them super slow turn-based modes with friends where there isn't a time limit for your turn. And what that means is I can log on now, I can take a turn on a couple of different games, potentially against different people, come off, at some point on throughout the day they'll log on, do their turn, I'll be able to log on, do my turn, and it might take us an entire day to play one game of Onitama, which is normally over if you're playing it physically in front of you in 5 minutes. But I've been absolutely loving being able to play games with people the other end of the country, or potentially even in other countries that I just wouldn't have been able to play games with. It's also meant that I've phased out utilising certain social media apps a little bit. I've stopped opening those up and I've gone and played a little board game instead. So I've really enjoyed actually doing that transition a little bit, not using as much social media, playing a few additional games. And a nice little tip that I've come across is have 2 games going with one person. Have a bigger game like a Castles of Burgundy, but have a little sort of side one, Tekken Colour, Onitama, that sort of thing. And again, you're logging on to play a turn on each rather than just one turn. Not only does it mean you remember to log in a little bit more, it just feels when you log in, you've actually got a bit more to do than just a single turn. I've certainly really been enjoying Board Game Arena, and I can see myself using it for the rest of the year because I've paid for the premium for the rest of the year, simply because it opens up so many more games, I can start more tables and all that sort of stuff. But what do you think of Board Game Arena, Tabletop Simulator, any of the others? I know it's digitally playing board games and that's a bit odd to some people, but what do you think of it? Let me know in the comment section below. And I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of the creators that joined me on today's show. Please go and check them out, subscribe to them as well as subscribing here. The links to their channels will be in the description box downstairs, so you can go and subscribe and check their stuff out. And until next time, have a brilliant month gaming.